Anna pushed open the heavy glass door of the small cafe where she worked, the familiar sound of the bell above jingling as she entered. The morning air still clung to her jacket, cool and sharp, but inside the cafe it was warm, filled with the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked bread. She always loved that smell. It reminded her why she kept coming back to this job, even though the hours were long and the pay was small. It gave her a sense of belonging, a place where she felt useful. She tied on her apron, smoothed her hair into a neat bun, and glanced at the tables lined with fresh white cloths. The sun had just begun to rise higher, and rays of golden light streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. For most people, it was just another ordinary morning. But for Anna, every day carried a quiet hope. She didn't know what she was hoping for exactly. Maybe a small change, maybe a chance, maybe something that could shift her life, even just a little. The cafe soon filled with the usual faces. A businessman in a gray suit sat by the window, typing furiously on his laptop while sipping espresso. An elderly couple shared a pastry, their hands brushing together as they laughed softly over some private joke. A group of students piled into a corner booth, chatting loudly about their classes and dreams. Anna moved smoothly between them all, balancing trays, taking orders, smiling politely, and answering questions. To anyone watching, it seemed like she was simply doing her job. But inside, she was always carrying more dreams, worries, and the quiet weight of responsibilities. Her family depended on her. Her mother was unwell, and her younger brother still in school. Every paycheck mattered. She often wished she could do more, earn more, maybe travel or study again. But instead, she found herself serving coffee, day after day, hiding her talents in the background. What most people didn't know was that Anna spoke 3 languages fluently: English, French, and Spanish. She had always loved learning, but in this little cafe, there wasn't much use for those skills. Most customers only spoke English, and very few even noticed the sharp intelligence in her eyes. Still, Anna never complained. She believed every small act of kindness mattered, and she treated each customer as if they were important. Sometimes that meant simply listening to someone vent about their day. Other times it was remembering how they liked their coffee, extra sugar, no milk, or with a slice of lemon on the side. To Anna, these little details made people feel seen. She liked that. As she cleared a table, she looked outside through the glass and saw the city slowly waking up. Cars rolled past, honking at one another. A mother hurried across the street, tugging her child by the hand. Life was busy, noisy, full of movement. Inside, the cafe was like a small island of calm, and Anna found comfort in that routine. She didn't know that today was different. She didn't know that fate was watching her closely, ready to place her on a path that would change everything. She carried a tray of steaming cups to a group near the counter, smiling warmly as she set them down. "Here you go, careful, it's hot," she said softly. The group thanked her, hardly looking up, already lost in their conversation. That was how it usually was. She was invisible, present only when needed, fading into the background once her work was done. But Anna didn't mind. She had trained herself to find beauty in small things. The way the sunlight made patterns on the floor, the way coffee foam swirled like art before it melted, the way people's faces lit up when they tasted something they loved. She noticed these details because she believed life was too short to ignore them. She walked back to the counter where her coworker, Lily, was polishing glasses. "Busy day already," Lily muttered. Anna smiled. "It keeps us moving. Better than standing around." They both laughed, and for a brief moment, the weight of work didn't feel so heavy. Yet, somewhere deep inside, Anna sometimes wondered if this was all her life would ever be. Serving others, working hard, but never being truly seen. She remembered the books she had read in school, the languages she had mastered, the dreams she once whispered to herself about traveling the world. But those dreams now felt like fragile paper boats, floating far away, almost out of reach. The clock ticked on, and Anna continued moving through the cafe, carrying plates and balancing trays with practiced grace. It was a rhythm she knew by heart. Customers came and went, voices rose and faded, The smell of coffee never left the air. It was just an ordinary day, or at least that was what it seemed like. Anna had no idea that her smallest action today, a single word spoken at the right time, would alter her life forever. She couldn't have guessed that someone was watching, someone who carried the power to change her world in a way she had never imagined. For now, she was just a waitress in a busy cafe, going through her usual routine, not knowing that destiny had already taken its seat at the next table. The cafe door opened with a gentle push, and a man stepped inside. He wasn't like the usual customers Anna was used to seeing. He didn't carry a laptop, he wasn't rushing with papers in his hand, and he didn't seem distracted by a phone buzzing in his pocket. Instead, he walked slowly, his eyes scanning the cafe with quiet curiosity, as if he were looking for something familiar. Anna noticed him immediately. His clothes were simple, not flashy, yet there was something about him that made him stand out. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, with calm confidence, or maybe it was the weariness in his face that suggested he had been traveling. He chose a small corner table by the window and sat down, placing his hands neatly on the surface, as though he had nowhere else to be. Anna walked over with her usual welcoming smile and handed him the menu. "Good morning, sir. What would you like today?" she asked politely. The man looked at the menu, then at her and hesitated. He opened his mouth to speak, but his words came out slowly, broken, as though English wasn't natural for him. "Coffee, please. With milk," he said carefully, his accent thick. Anna instantly recognized the struggle in his voice. She had heard it many times before, the effort of someone trying to communicate in a language that wasn't their own. Her heart softened. Without thinking twice, she replied in fluent French, "Voulez-vous du sucre avec votre café, monsieur? Would you like sugar with your coffee, sir?" The man's head lifted sharply, his tired eyes suddenly bright. A surprised smile spread across his face, and for a moment, he looked almost relieved. "Ah, vous parlez français," he exclaimed, his voice carrying both excitement and gratitude. Anna nodded with a gentle smile. "Oui, monsieur. Je parle français. C'est plus facile pour vous." "Yes, sir. I speak French. Is it easier for you?" The man laughed softly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Beaucoup plus facile. Merci, mademoiselle. Much easier. Thank you, miss." Their conversation continued in French, flowing smoothly now that the barrier was gone. He told her he was visiting the city for the first time, that he had been traveling across countries and often felt lost when people didn't understand him. She listened attentively, responding kindly, her words filling the empty spaces where frustration usually lived for travelers. For Anna, it was natural. For him, it was a small miracle. Other customers glanced at them curiously, hearing the melodic rhythm of French in a place where English was the norm. A few even whispered to each other, surprised that the quiet waitress had this hidden talent. But Anna didn't notice. For her, it wasn't about showing off. It was about helping someone feel at home, even if just for a cup of coffee. She brought his drink, placing the cup gently on the table. "Here you go, monsieur. Un café au lait, avec un peu de sucre, comme vous l'aimez. A coffee with milk, a little sugar, just the way you like it." The man's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Merci beaucoup. You don't know how good it feels to be understood." Anna smiled, brushing it off lightly. "It's nothing, just a language. But sometimes, a language is all we need to feel less alone." As she walked back toward the counter, Anna felt a quiet warmth in her chest. She loved moments like this, small human connections that cost nothing but left someone's day brighter. To her, this was the real reason she worked in a cafe, not just the paycheck. She got to meet people from different places, different lives, and for a brief moment, their paths crossed. But what Anna didn't notice was that she wasn't the only one who had seen the exchange. At a table nearby, a man in an expensive suit had been observing everything with great interest. He had come in earlier, quietly, and now he watched Anna as she moved gracefully from table to table. His eyes didn't leave her, not because she was simply polite, but because of the genuine kindness she carried in her actions. He noticed how her face lit up when she spoke in French, how she didn't hesitate to make a stranger feel welcome, and how natural it seemed for her to treat everyone with respect. The French traveler sat happily sipping his coffee, occasionally glancing up to catch Anna's smile. It wasn't just a drink to him anymore. It was comfort. It was belonging. It was a reminder that kindness can cross borders without needing passports. Meanwhile, Anna carried on with her duties, unaware that her small act of kindness was already shaping the path of her future. For her, it was just another day, just another customer she had helped. She didn't think about it much, but someone else in the cafe was thinking about it very deeply. The wealthy man at the nearby table adjusted his cufflinks, still watching quietly. In his world, people often tried to impress him with money, status, or ambition. Rarely did he see something as pure and unselfish as a young woman helping a stranger simply because it was the right thing to do. He didn't know her name yet, but he already knew she was different. And so, the cafe, filled with ordinary customers and the clinking of cups, became the setting for something extraordinary. A young waitress had greeted a traveler in his own language, and in doing so, she had unknowingly opened a door to a story that would soon change her life forever. The man in the corner took a slow sip of his coffee, his eyes closing for a brief moment as though the warmth of the cup reminded him of home. Anna stood nearby, ready to return to her work, but the man looked up and spoke again, this time in French. His tone was softer now, not strained like before. "Your French is very good," he said. "Where did you learn it?" Anna smiled modestly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "At school first and then on my own. I always loved languages. They make the world feel a little smaller." The man chuckled. "Smaller, yes, but also friendlier. When I heard you speak, it was as if someone opened a window. Suddenly, the room felt brighter." His words touched Anna more deeply than she expected. She had never thought much about her skill. To her, speaking French was just something she enjoyed, something she had studied late at night when her friends were out, something she did quietly without expecting it to matter. But here, in this simple cafe, it mattered very much. Their conversation drifted from coffee to cities, from travel to culture. He told her about his hometown in France, a quiet village where the streets were narrow and cobblestones shone in the rain. He described the smell of fresh bread from the bakery in the mornings, and the way neighbors still greeted each other as if they were family. Anna listened closely, her eyes shining with interest, as if his words painted pictures she could almost step into. She shared little pieces of her own life too. She told him how she had always dreamed of traveling, how books and languages gave her an escape when reality felt heavy. She confessed she had never been on a plane, never left the country, but in her heart she believed one day she would. The man nodded thoughtfully, stirring his coffee slowly. "You have the heart of a traveler," he said. "Not everyone has it. Some people see the world only with their eyes. People like you see it with their soul." Anna felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. She wasn't used to hearing such kind words. Most days, customers barely noticed her beyond the tray in her hands. But here was someone who saw more, someone who noticed not just what she did, but who she was. Around them, the cafe buzzed with its usual life. Dishes clattered in the kitchen, spoons tapped against cups, conversations rose and fell. Yet for a few minutes, it felt as though the world had grown quieter, leaving only the two of them in their small bubble of shared words and gentle laughter. At the counter, Lily, her coworker, raised her eyebrows and whispered to another waiter, "Look at Anna. She's been talking for ages. I didn't even know she spoke French." The others glanced over, curious, but Anna didn't notice. She was too absorbed in the rare joy of speaking freely in a language she loved. The man leaned back in his chair, watching her with genuine respect. "You know," he said slowly, "sometimes the smallest things mean the most. You could have ignored my struggle with English. You could have just nodded and walked away. But you didn't. You gave me kindness." Anna shook her head lightly. "It wasn't kindness. It was natural. If you know how to help someone, why wouldn't you?" But he only smiled, as though he saw something deeper in her than she admitted. Anna returned to her duties for a while, serving other tables, carrying plates, wiping down surfaces, but each time she passed by his table, he greeted her with another question. another story. She answered when she could, enjoying the small moments of connection. It reminded her why she loved learning languages in the first place. Not for grades, not for achievements, but for conversations like these. Conversations that made the world feel connected, no matter how far apart two people were born. Eventually, his cup was nearly empty, and she came to refill it. He looked at her with gratitude, his eyes kind. "I will remember this day," he said softly. "Sometimes, when you travel, you feel invisible. But today, because of you, I feel seen." His words stayed with her even as she walked away, carrying the pot of coffee back to the counter. She had not done anything grand. She had not given him wealth or solved his problems. All she had done was speak in a language that felt familiar to him. Yet that small act had carried more weight than she imagined. What Anna didn't know was that another pair of eyes had been watching even more closely. At the next table, the well-dressed man in the tailored suit had hardly touched his food. He had been quietly observing, listening to the rhythm of their French words, watching the kindness in Anna's eyes. He wasn't impressed by her beauty alone, though she carried it naturally. He was impressed by her heart. In his world, money and power often spoke louder than kindness. But here, in this little cafe, he saw something money couldn't buy. A waitress, unseen by most, had given dignity to a stranger with nothing more than her words. Anna, unaware of the silent observer, continued her work, her heart lighter than usual. She didn't know that her friendly exchange, as simple as it seemed, had already planted the seeds of something extraordinary. For her, it was just conversation. For the man she helped, it was hope. And for the wealthy man nearby, it was the beginning of a plan that would soon change her life forever. The cafe was alive with its usual rhythm. Spoons clinking against cups, soft chatter filling the air, and the smell of coffee drifting around like a warm blanket. To Anna, everything felt normal. She was busy moving from one table to another, serving drinks, clearing dishes, and exchanging polite smiles with customers. But hidden within that ordinary morning was a pair of eyes that never left her. At the table just a few feet away sat a man who looked very different from most people in the cafe. His suit was perfectly tailored, the fabric rich and expensive. A golden watch rested on his wrist, glinting each time he moved. His shoes shone as though they had been polished only an hour ago. He carried himself with the quiet authority of someone used to being respected, maybe even feared. This man was not just a customer. He was someone who lived in a completely different world. A world of power, money, and influence. He had come to the cafe that morning for no special reason, only to enjoy a quiet breakfast. He wasn't expecting anything unusual. But from the moment he noticed the young waitress greeting the foreign traveler in French, something inside him shifted. He leaned back in his chair, pretending to study his phone or sip his coffee, but in truth, his full attention was on Anna. He watched the way she leaned forward slightly when she listened, showing genuine interest in the Frenchman's stories. He noticed how her smile wasn't forced, how her laughter was soft but real. She wasn't acting to impress. She was simply being herself. In his world, that kind of honesty was rare. People usually wanted something from him, money, favors, or connections. Yet here was this waitress, treating a stranger with warmth simply because she wanted to help. As the conversation between Anna and the French traveler flowed, the wealthy man's thoughts grew deeper. He saw how carefully she spoke, how she switched languages with ease, and how she carried herself with quiet grace. She reminded him of something he had almost forgotten, the beauty of simple kindness. He picked up his fork, but barely touched the meal in front of him. Instead, he kept studying her, wondering about her life. Who was she? Why was a young woman with such talent working here in a cafe? What dreams had she once held before life pushed her into this job? He had built an empire, signed billion-dollar contracts, and traveled the world, but he couldn't remember the last time someone had caught his attention in such a pure way. Anna, of course, had no idea she was being watched. To her, he was just another customer, quiet, serious, and probably too busy with his own world to notice her. She didn't know that every move she made, every word she spoke, was leaving an impression on him. The French traveler, now more relaxed, continued chatting happily with her. His voice carried across the cafe, and though the wealthy man didn't understand French, he could tell from the tone that the conversation was genuine. The laughter, the pauses, the smiles. It was the kind of interaction money could never buy. For a moment, the man in the suit felt a pang of envy. Not envy for the traveler's coffee or his conversation, but for the fact that he had received something the billionaire rarely experienced: true, uncalculated kindness. He remembered countless dinners where people praised him, but their words were hollow, designed only to win his favor. He remembered meetings where smiles were nothing more than masks hiding ambition. But here, in this small cafe, he saw something real. A young woman who didn't even realize she was being extraordinary. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, his mind racing. Should he do something? Should he speak to her? He wasn't sure yet. He didn't want to disturb her while she worked. And besides, he was a stranger to her. Why would she even notice him? But still, the thought lingered. Maybe fate had led him here today for a reason. As he watched, Anna excused herself from the French traveler for a moment and went to wipe down another table. She hummed softly under her breath, unaware that her small tune reached his ears. He found himself smiling, a rare, genuine smile he hadn't felt in a long time. Other customers in the cafe saw Anna as just a waitress, someone to take their orders. But he saw more. He saw intelligence in her eyes, strength in her posture, and a kindness that couldn't be faked. The minutes passed, but to him they felt like seconds. Every little action of hers deepened his curiosity. She poured coffee with steady hands, bent down to speak kindly to an elderly customer, laughed at a student's joke, and treated each person as though they mattered. That simple quality struck him harder than any business deal he had ever made. By the time the French traveler finished his drink and Anna walked back to clear the table, the wealthy man had already made up his mind. He would not leave the cafe without doing something. He didn't know exactly what, but he knew this encounter was special. Something inside told him that the girl who spoke French to a stranger might just deserve more than the life she was living now. And so, while Anna thought it was just another ordinary day, the man in the suit quietly planned his next move. He was the silent observer, unnoticed yet watching closely, ready to step into her story in a way she could never expect. The cafe had begun to quiet down as the morning rush faded. A few customers lingered with half-finished drinks, lost in newspapers or phones. The French traveler leaned back in his chair, his coffee nearly gone, his expression calm and content. Anna passed by his table, carrying a tray stacked with empty cups, and he gave her a grateful smile. She smiled back, happy that he looked more relaxed than when he had first walked in. His earlier nervousness had faded, replaced by comfort. She thought to herself that this was why she enjoyed small gestures of kindness. They made people feel at home. But when she returned a few minutes later, the table was empty. His chair was pushed neatly in, his cup cleared, and he was gone. No goodbye, no final words. Just gone. Anna blinked in surprise. She hadn't even noticed him leave. A strange wave of disappointment touched her heart. She had enjoyed their short connection, and she wished she could have said goodbye properly. Still, she shrugged it off. People came and went all the time in a cafe. Some stayed only long enough for a quick coffee before disappearing back into their lives. She wiped down the table, humming softly, not knowing that something far more surprising was waiting for her. At the next table, the man in the expensive suit had also finished his meal. His plate was barely touched, but he didn't seem to care. He had been too focused on watching. Now, as Anna cleared the French traveler's table, she noticed that his seat too was empty. The wealthy man was gone. She frowned slightly, wondering when he had left. She didn't remember seeing him walk out either. It was only when she picked up the tip tray from his table that she froze. Beneath the small pile of coins and bills was something unusual. A folded piece of fine stationery, cream-colored and thick, unlike the cheap napkins most people scribbled notes on. Carefully, she picked it up. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant, written with a fountain pen, not a hurried ballpoint. The words were short, but they struck her like thunder. You reminded me today that true wealth is found in kindness. Use this gift to follow your dreams. Her heart raced. She turned the note over, as if more words might be hidden there. But instead of more writing, something else slipped out from the fold. A ticket. At first, she thought it was a plane ticket, maybe for a regular airline. But when she looked closer, her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just a plane ticket. It was a private jet boarding pass. Her name was printed on it. Anna. Her eyes widened in shock. How could this be possible? She hadn't given her name to anyone except the cashier, and even then only for her employee card at the register. She stared at the ticket, her mind racing with questions. Was this real? Was it a joke? Her coworker Lily walked by and noticed her pale face. Anna? What's wrong? Anna quickly showed her the note and the ticket. Lily's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Are you serious? Where did you get this? It was left here, Anna whispered, her voice unsteady. By the man who was sitting here. Lily grabbed the ticket, reading it over and over. This can't be real. This looks official. Look at the stamp. Look at the name. Anna, this is your name. Anna pulled it back, holding it protectively. Her heart pounded in her chest, so loud she thought others might hear it. Why would a stranger leave something like this for her? A note about kindness, a jet ticket with her name, it didn't make sense. She was just a waitress, living an ordinary life, working hard to survive. She had no idea why anyone, especially someone wealthy, would notice her at all. Other co-workers gathered, whispering and gasping, their curiosity growing. Some thought it was a prank. Maybe someone's trying to trick you, one said. Another laughed nervously. Or maybe it's some reality TV show. But deep down, Anna felt a strange certainty. The handwriting was too deliberate. The details too precise. Whoever had left this hadn't done it for attention. It was real. She folded the note again carefully, clutching it against her chest as if afraid it would vanish. Her thoughts swirled like a storm. Excitement, fear, disbelief. Could she really take this? Could she trust it? What would happen if she did? She looked out the cafe window, hoping to spot the man who had left it. But the street outside was busy with strangers passing by, cars rushing past, and no sign of him. It was as though he had disappeared into thin air, leaving only the gift behind. Anna sank into a chair, her knees weak. For years she had dreamed of something different, something bigger than her small world. She had studied languages with the hope of traveling someday, but money had always held her back. And now, in her hands, was the chance she had never dared to believe would come true. Her coworker touched her shoulder gently. Anna, maybe this is your chance. Maybe this is meant for you. Anna didn't reply. She couldn't find the words. All she knew was that her life no longer felt ordinary. A few minutes ago, she was wiping tables and serving coffee. Now, she was holding a note that carried the weight of destiny and a ticket that promised a journey she couldn't yet imagine. The cafe seemed to fade around her. The laughter of customers, the clatter of dishes, the smell of coffee. It all blurred into the background. All that mattered was the folded paper in her hand, and the truth it carried. Her life was no longer the same. Anna sat frozen, staring at the folded paper and the jet ticket in her hands. It felt unreal, as though she had stepped into someone else's life. Just minutes ago, she was wiping tables and serving drinks. Now she was holding something that could open a door she had only dreamed about. Her fingers traced the smooth edges of the note again, her heartbeat still racing. She unfolded it carefully, reading the words once more, hoping they might make more sense the second time. You reminded me today that true wealth is found in kindness. Use this gift to follow your dreams. Her lips moved silently as she repeated the words. Simple, short, but powerful enough to shake her entire world. She stared at the signature, but there wasn't one. No name, no clue about who had written it. Just those lines and the ticket tucked inside. She leaned back in her chair, the cafe noise fading into the background. She had always believed her life would stay small. Work, home, family, repeat. She never thought that a stranger might walk in and turn everything upside down. Yet, here she was, holding proof that someone had not only noticed her kindness but believed it was worth rewarding. Her coworker Lily hovered nearby, wide-eyed with disbelief. Anna, this isn't normal. People don't just leave things like this. It's too big. Are you sure it's real? Anna glanced down at the ticket again. The glossy paper shimmered under the cafe lights. Her own name was printed in neat letters. Destination details, time, and date all perfectly laid out. It wasn't the kind of thing someone could fake in a hurry. I think it's real, Anna whispered, almost to herself. It has to be. Lily pulled up a chair and sat across from her. But why you? I mean, you're amazing, Anna, you are. But strangers don't give jet tickets to waitresses. This doesn't happen in real life. Anna smiled faintly, though her eyes were still filled with confusion. Maybe it doesn't happen often, but maybe, sometimes it does. Her mind traveled back to the moment earlier that morning, when she spoke to the French traveler in his own language. She remembered the way his face had lit up, the relief in his eyes. It had been such a simple gesture for her, but maybe for him it had meant the world. And perhaps, just perhaps, the man at the other table, the one in the expensive suit, had seen it. She didn't know his name or why he was there. She only remembered his calm presence, the way he seemed different from the others. Could it have been him? Had he left this note? Her heart pounded harder at the thought. If it was him, why would he do it? She hadn't spoken a word to him. She hadn't even noticed him much. She was just doing her job. Yet he had looked closer, seen deeper, and chosen to give her something so extraordinary. Anna pressed the note to her chest, closing her eyes for a moment. She thought about her mother, who had always told her that kindness would come back one day in unexpected ways. She thought about her younger brother, who often teased her for dreaming too big. Maybe this was the proof that dreams weren't foolish after all. But then another feeling crept in, fear. What if it was a trick? What if she boarded the jet only to find it was some kind of cruel joke? Her stomach knotted with doubt. She had lived a cautious life, never taking risks, always thinking carefully before each step. This, however, was bigger than anything she had ever faced. She looked out the window, searching for answers in the busy street outside. People passed by quickly, rushing to work, carrying bags, hailing taxis. To them, today was just another day. For her, it was the moment that split her life into two parts. Before the note and after the note. Lily leaned forward, her voice softer now. What are you going to do? Anna swallowed hard. I don't know yet. But deep inside, something stirred. A spark of courage she hadn't felt in years. She thought of all the times she had dreamed of traveling, of stepping onto a plane, of seeing places she had only read about in books. She thought of the Frenchman's words, "You have the heart of a traveler." Maybe this was her chance to finally prove it true. She opened the note one last time, reading the handwriting carefully, as though the letters themselves carried secrets. The words were written with such care, such intention. Whoever wrote them had meant every syllable. And the message was clear. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about showing off. It was about giving her a chance to step beyond the walls of her small life. Anna held the ticket in her hands again, staring at her name printed boldly across it. Her name, not just any name. That detail made her shiver. Whoever had given this knew exactly who she was. The thought was both comforting and frightening. Comforting because it meant someone had noticed her for more than just her apron and tray. Frightening because it meant she wasn't as invisible as she sometimes believed. For a long moment, she sat there in silence, caught between fear and hope. Then slowly she smiled. A soft, trembling smile, but a real one. Maybe life was finally offering her a door to step through. Maybe this was her chance to chase the dreams she had buried under responsibilities. Anna carefully folded the note again and slipped it into her pocket, close to her heart. She held the jet ticket firmly in her hand, as though it might disappear if she let go. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't even know who had given her this gift. But she knew one thing with certainty. Her life was no longer ordinary. The note had changed everything. Anna sat at the small staff table in the back of the cafe, the jet ticket resting in front of her like a fragile treasure. She stared at it again and again, as if the letters might change if she blinked too long. Her coworkers had already circled around her, whispering, gasping, and giving their own wild theories about what it all meant. "It's a trap," one of the waiters said firmly, shaking his head. "No one gives away things like this for free, especially not rich men." "It's not fake," Lily argued. She had been by Anna's side since the beginning, studying the glossy paper with wide eyes. "Look at the details, the airline, the flight time, even her name. It's too real to be fake." Anna sat quietly, letting their voices fade into the background. She wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was tangled in questions that no one could answer. Why her? Why now? What if it was an opportunity? What if it was danger? Her heart was torn between excitement and fear. On one side was the safe path, the one she had walked all her life. Work her shifts, save a little money, help her family, and never take risks. On the other side was the unknown. Stepping into a jet she had never imagined she'd be invited to board. She touched the note again, reading the words she had already memorized. "True wealth is found in kindness. Use this gift to follow your dreams." The words echoed inside her. She thought of her mother, who always reminded her that kindness would one day be rewarded. She thought of her younger self, the girl who once wanted to study languages abroad, travel the world, and experience life beyond her small town. That girl was still inside her, though she had buried her dreams under work and responsibility. "Anna." Lily's voice broke through her thoughts, gentle but firm. "You can't ignore this. Maybe it's crazy, maybe it's risky, but it's also a chance. And chances don't come like this every day." Anna looked at her friend with uncertainty. "But what if it's dangerous? What if I'm being foolish? People will laugh at me if I believe in something that turns out to be a joke." Lily shook her head. "So what? If it's a joke, you'll survive it. But if it's real, then your whole life could change. Don't you at least want to find out?" The cafe buzzed with noise around them, but for Anna, time seemed to stand still. She pictured herself walking away from the cafe, ticket in hand, her heart pounding as she approached the airport. She imagined stepping onto a private jet, the smell of leather seats, the quiet hum of engines ready to take her somewhere far away. It was terrifying, it was thrilling, and it was hers to decide. Later that night, when her shift was over, Anna walked home slowly. The city lights glowed softly against the dark sky, and the cool breeze brushed her cheeks. She clutched the ticket in her bag, unable to let it out of her sight. Her small apartment felt different when she entered. Usually, it was her safe space, her place of rest. Tonight, it felt like a cage. She looked around at the worn furniture, the stack of bills on the counter, and the life she had been living for years. Safe, steady, ordinary. She sat on her bed, the note in one hand, the ticket in the other. Her thoughts swirled in a storm of what-ifs. What if she went? What if she didn't? What if this was the one chance she would never get again? Anna remembered something her father once told her when she was a little girl. "Life won't wait for you, Anna. If the door opens, you either walk through it or you stay behind." Tears filled her eyes as she realized this was exactly what he meant. A door had opened. A strange, mysterious, almost unbelievable door. But it was real. It had her name on it. And it was waiting. The next morning, Anna hardly slept. She tossed and turned all night, caught between fear and hope. By sunrise, she was exhausted, but her mind was made up. She couldn't ignore this. She couldn't let fear chain her forever to the same old life. She packed a small bag, her hands trembling with every fold of fabric. She didn't own much, just a few changes of clothes and a photo of her family. She slipped the photo into her bag, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "I have to know." At the cafe, her co-workers gathered around her again, waiting to see what she had decided. Anna stood tall, though her knees shook. She held up the ticket and said softly but firmly, "I'm going." Some gasped, some smiled, some shook their heads in disbelief. But Anna didn't care anymore. For the first time in her life, she wasn't living for their opinions. She was living for herself. As she walked out of the cafe doors that day, the sunlight felt warmer, brighter. The city looked different, as if it was cheering her on. Every step toward the airport felt like a step toward the unknown, but also toward freedom. Her decision wasn't about money. It wasn't even about the billionaire who had left her the gift. It was about her courage to choose change, to believe that her kindness, her dreams, and her courage were enough to take her somewhere new. And as she clutched the ticket tightly in her hand, Anna whispered one final promise to herself. This is the beginning. Whatever waits on the other side, I will not turn back. Anna's hands trembled as she held the ticket, but her feet felt strangely light as she stepped into the airport. Everything around her was busy. The rolling suitcases, the announcements echoing overhead, the smell of fresh coffee drifting from nearby cafes. Yet for her it felt like time slowed down. She had never traveled this way before, never held such a ticket, and never felt this mix of fear and excitement inside her chest. She looked around nervously, half expecting someone to stop her and say it was all a mistake. But no one did. People hurried past, focused on their own lives, while Anna clutched her bag tighter. She walked slowly toward the private lounge mentioned on her ticket, each step a reminder that she was walking into the unknown. Her heart pounded faster when she saw it. A quiet area separated from the busy airport, guarded by polite attendants in crisp uniforms. She hesitated, her courage threatening to break, but then she remembered the note. Use this gift to follow your dreams. The words gave her strength. She lifted her chin, handed over her ticket, and waited. The attendant scanned it, smiled warmly, and nodded. Welcome, Miss Anna. Right this way. Her knees nearly gave out at the sound of her name. It was real. This wasn't a prank, wasn't a trick. Someone had truly given her this chance. She followed the attendant, her eyes wide as she entered a space she had only ever seen in magazines. Leather chairs, soft lighting, quiet music playing in the background. Everything was calm, luxurious, and far from the noisy cafe she worked in. Minutes later, she was escorted outside toward the runway. There it stood, a sleek private jet, gleaming under the sunlight like something from another world. Her breath caught in her throat. She had served coffee to travelers for years, always wondering what it would be like to board a plane herself. Now she wasn't just boarding a plane. She was boarding a private jet. A flight attendant welcomed her at the door. We've been expecting you. Those words almost brought tears to Anna's eyes. Expecting her? She was just a waitress, someone ordinary. Yet here she was, treated like she mattered. She stepped inside carefully, her shoes sinking into the soft carpet. The air smelled faintly of fresh flowers and polished wood. Plush seats lined the cabin, far more comfortable than anything she had imagined. She sat by the window, her hands still shaking, and pressed her forehead lightly against the cool glass. Outside, the world seemed both familiar and distant. She thought of her little apartment, her coworkers, the cafe. Would they believe her if she told them this was happening? Maybe not. It almost felt like a dream to her as well. As the engines hummed to life, Anna closed her eyes. Her mind drifted back to the moment it all began. A simple French greeting to a stranger. That small act of kindness had somehow changed everything. She realized now that life didn't always change through big actions or loud gestures. Sometimes it shifted through the smallest of things. A smile, a word, a kindness that touched the right person's heart. The jet began to move, rolling slowly across the runway. Anna's chest tightened with nerves, but also with hope. For the first time in her life, she wasn't looking back. She wasn't tied down by fear or doubt. She was flying toward something new, something she couldn't yet see but desperately wanted to discover. She thought about the man in the gray suit, the silent observer who had left her the note and ticket. Who was he really? Why had he chosen her? Would she ever see him again? The questions swirled in her mind, but she didn't feel worried. Instead, she felt grateful. Whoever he was, he had believed in her when she hadn't believed in herself. That gift was more valuable than the ticket itself. As the jet lifted into the sky, Anna felt her body press back into the seat. Her stomach fluttered, her heart raced, and her eyes filled with tears. Not of fear, but of joy. She was finally breaking free. The world outside the window spread wide and endless, clouds glowing like soft mountains beneath her. She whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The flight was smooth and quiet, giving her time to reflect. She thought about her family, how proud her mother would be if she knew. She imagined telling her little brother about this adventure, his disbelief turning into admiration. And for the first time, she imagined a life beyond waiting tables, a life where her kindness, her languages, and her courage could take her far. Hours passed like minutes, and soon the jet began its descent. Anna's heart pounded again as the city lights of her destination appeared below, sparkling like jewels scattered across the night. She didn't know what waited for her there. Opportunity, challenge, or perhaps another message from the mysterious billionaire. But she knew one thing, she was ready. The wheels touched down softly, and Anna felt a surge of strength rush through her. She wasn't the same person who had stood nervously in her cafe just a day ago. She wasn't just the girl cleaning tables and hiding her dreams. She was someone who had taken a leap of faith, who had dared to step into the unknown. When the jet door opened, warm air filled the cabin, carrying the scent of a new city. Anna stepped out slowly, her eyes wide with wonder. The night sky stretched above her, and the future stretched even further. She clutched the note in her pocket, feeling its words echo inside her once more. True wealth wasn't in money, but in kindness. And perhaps, just perhaps, the kindness she had shown that day was only the beginning of a life filled with extraordinary moments. Anna smiled softly to herself. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was hers, and for the first time she wasn't afraid.